You was like, oh, he didn't play that well. He just got the goal. Obviously, I love the fact that he got the goal. Now he's our only scorer. He's the reason we're even top of the group and out of the group.
The only concern for me would be the lack of goals. 2 goals in 3 games, 1 person scoring. I think that is something that you do worry about.
You're watching the Euro Social here on talkSPORT, your hub for everything England throughout the Euros. Today, I'm joined by Mckola and Rory Jennings. Make sure you like and subscribe. How's it going, boys?
How you guys doing, man? Good to be with you, boys.
I'm feeling good, Craig. You know that. I'm feeling really good about England now. I do it to myself, I know. But as these games come around, I start to really convince myself that it's actually going to be this time.
And all right, so let's get straight into it then, because obviously the group stages are done. England finished top of their group. They 3 clean sheets, 2 goals, 2 wins and a draw. Rory, I ask you, because you sound like you're really, really feeling England right now. What did you make of the group stage? How's your review of it?
Look, England didn't play especially well, but I almost think that you can spin that into a positive because we haven't played well. And yet we haven't conceded a goal, which is huge. I mean, I think Adam will even agree with this one, that defences are what win you titles. And the fact that England, without, arguably at least, our best defender, I think certainly our most important defender, without our most important defender for 2 of the 3 games, haven't conceded a goal, I think that's huge. I think it bodes very well. And I hope that we can use that group stage, which at times was fairly uninspiring, but it was efficient. I hope we can use that grounding as a launch pad, and now we really warm up into the tournament.
What about you, Adam? Do you echo those thoughts, or?
I think defensively it was better than I expected. I think like Rory alluded, like without Harry Maguire for the first 2 games, I think I was worried for them, especially when you looked at Stones and Mings. But I think Mings come out with his head held quite high. I thought he played well. The only concern for me would be the lack of goals. 2 goals in 3 games, 1 person scoring. I think that is something that you do worry about. But like Rory said, traditionally, anyway, the tournament winners never start off on fire. Portugal drew their first 3 games when they won the tournament last time out. Yeah. So in the group stages, when 3rd place can get you through, I don't think it's key to kind of hit the ground running as in terms of performances, as long as you get the results. But there are a few concerns there, especially when you look at some of the selection by Gareth Southgate. And going into this game with Germany, I know we're going to talk about that later, there would be a few things that do concern me.
Rory, I got to come to you, man, because the last time we did this, Flex was on there. You wasn't giving Raheem Sterling his props. You was like, oh, he didn't play that well. He just got the goal. Obviously, I love the fact that he got the goal. Now he's our only scorer. He's the reason we're even top of the group and out of the group. People kept saying it again and again. Why is he starting? Grealish. They wanted all these different sorts of names, and he's the one that's come up with the goods now.
Yeah, I totally agree, Craig. I don't think that Raheem Sterling has had a particularly good season. I probably don't think that his form over the course of the season deserved the place in the team. I also wouldn't have put him in the team. I don't think he's played well this tournament, but the fact that he is responsible for 6 of the 7 points England managed to accrue, it's outstandingly brilliant.
Wait, why would you say he hasn't played well? Because I feel like he's still been a handful. There's been opportunities where he's tried to create things. I think maybe in the Scotland game, he set up 2 potential opportunities where he came from the left side and nutmegged the players and played the ball in. Mount put one wide. I feel like he's still been a handful at the beginning of the game against the Czech Republic. He had the opportunity. Okay, maybe he should have scored where the keeper came out and he lobbed him and it hit the post. But he's always been involved.
I agree. I don't think overall his tournament, his play during the games, he's had moments. But I feel like with Raheem Sterling, the ceiling is slightly lower than it is for some of the other players that are competing for a position with him. So whether that is Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, or Phil Foden, I feel like the ceiling for Raheem Sterling is slightly lower. But please, Craig, please know this. I'm falling back on what I've said. I totally respect and love the fact that he has scored 2 goals. You cannot take that away from him. He is responsible. I said it a moment ago, and I'm going to say it again because I think it deserves more grandeur. He is responsible for 6 of the 7 points that England have won. Now, despite the fact that I didn't think he wouldn't have started in my England team, he wouldn't have even started in my England team for the second game. Now he starts for me. Now he starts. Okay. He's earned that, and he is a handful. If I feel like sometimes the choices he makes are incorrect? Maybe. Sometimes I think that he isn't as deadly when given an opportunity as he could be. Maybe that's true as well. But in terms of does he deserve a place in this England team, and do England need him now? 100%. He starts for me.
Mckola, are you part of the Free Sancho brigade? Are you part of the hashtag Free Sancho?
That's where the problem comes into this. I think Sterling, out of the front three, if you were going to drop anybody, it's not Raheem Sterling, simply on the fact he's been your match winner for 2 games. But it's the fact that your alternative is Jadon Sancho, someone that had massive goals and assists for Borussia Dortmund, played a key part in their campaign, and is one of the best wingers in the world. Let's not, mess about here. He's one of the top players about. Now, people will say maybe he hasn't done it in an England shirt, but he hasn't been given an opportunity to either. And with the game coming up against Germany, players that he plays against week in, week out, I think it's crying out for Jadon Sancho to start. But
not at the expense. Not at the expense.
I know if Raheem Sterling was dropped, he could sit there thinking, I don't deserve that.
I want to talk about Saka. Obviously played in an Arsenal team, struggling this season, and he's been one of the shining beacons in that team, probably alongside Kieran Tierney. And, he got his opportunity. Mount couldn't play, Foden couldn't play. We know Sancho could have got selected. Saka was the man that got the nod. A lot of people were scratching their heads. Arsenal fans weren't, of course, but a lot of people were scratching their heads thinking, why is he starting ahead of Sancho? And he performed. What did you not make of Saka's performance in that game?
It's that thing again with Sterling. It's like he hasn't done badly, and he doesn't deserve, like, when people say, I'd start him over Saka or him over Sterling, they're not particularly saying those players are bad or deserve to be dropped away, but the options that we have are better than them. And I was surprised to see Saka start because of the fact that the alternatives that you had, I think he was helped by the fact that Mount wasn't available, so then Grealish dropped into the 10, so then it was either Saka or Rashford, and Rashford's been carrying injuries, so I think the decision was kind of made for him with that. But as for Saka himself, he's such a fantastic player, and I wouldn't be surprised if that performance, especially with the way Southgate, although he's a hypocrite with the fact that he said Sancho doesn't have experience for a tournament and then picked Saka, I do think Saka could have earned himself a starting place. And he's so good in the sense that he can play in a number of positions. He can drop back if he needs to. He can play wing back. If we decide to play with 3 centre backs, he can play as part of a front three. And I think the great thing about him is if you give him a job to do, he's going to do it. He's a tactical sponge. And I think that's what we've seen from him at Arsenal. But Southgate does regard him as one of the front three. And would you put him in your strongest front three? I don't think so.
What about you, Rory?
I think it's very difficult. I think the final point that Adam made there is bang on. Look, in terms of the front three, is he one of the front three? Possibly not. But as an option, I think he's fantastic. And do you know what I'm going to bring this back to? I'm going to bring it back to Gareth Southgate, because I think that it's quite easy, and a lot of us, Adam and I in particular, have given Southgate a fair bit of stick.
Yeah.
A lot of it justified. I'd say all of it justified. But I would also say that sometimes he gets things right. It's important to acknowledge it. And picking Bukayo Saka, which kind of goes against the grain of public opinion. I think everybody was expecting Jadon Sancho to be given the opportunity. So a brave decision from Southgate to put Bukayo Saka in there, and if Saka gets man of the match, you have to acknowledge the contribution of the manager there. So I think it was an astute move from Southgate, a clever move, and one that I think sets England up really well now. I think that England going into this next phase, off the back of that successful group campaign, with lots of competition for places, there's lots of, if you look across the entire team, we brought Harry Maguire back, but arguably Tyrone Mings was one of our better players. We are probably not going to play Bukayo Saka, but he was man of the match in the last game. There are lots of very good players who are now competing for this England team. It shows you quite how strong we are.
Isn't there something to be said, though, for, like, okay, Saka's starting and he got man of the match, and that's all well and good. And you can credit the manager for doing that. But your manager needs to get his best players playing well in the team. And we're not currently doing that. Like, that's like why I think, yes, getting through with 7 points out of 9, 3 clean sheets is great. But when this team is only scoring 2 goals against the level of opposition that we've seen, that's when I start to think, something's not quite right here.
That's
So
true.
do you think
That's true.
do you think he's been too pragmatic then? Has he been, way too pragmatic? Because we know Jose plays this type of football, as we all know. And, he gets killed for it in the Premier League. And I know tournament football's a bit different, but he is playing with two holding midfielders. People keep calling that out. They're screaming for maybe someone a bit more positive to slide in there, maybe a 4-3-3. Can he even change the formation at this point, though? After this England team's been playing 4-2-3-1 for the best part of a year, or three at the back, can he now just, during the tournament, change the formation and go a bit more attacking, or is that too risky?
You don't have to change the formation to go more attacking. It's in the way you set up, or the players that you set up with. It's hard. He's got us here with this, but we should be scoring more goals.
I don't think so, Craig.
And with Jose Mourinho, you accept it from Jose Mourinho. Well, I didn't, but you can learn to accept it from Jose Mourinho because he's got a track record that tells you he's been successful with it before. Southgate hasn't, and I think even in the World Cup when we got to the semi-final, we played a better brand of football.
Do you know what, Craig? I think what Adam is saying is true, but I'm going to try and put a positive spin on it again. England,
yes,
I'm going to try, because England, when we ultimately face one of the better side, of which Germany are that, and then whoever we ultimately face, the Dutch, the French, whoever it is, they're good sides. And in those games, England won't have the opportunity to be expansive. We won't have the opportunity to play free-flowing attacking football, one holding midfielder. That's not going to happen in those games. And in a tournament like this, the games come thick and fast. You haven't had long with the players. So you have to kind of get one system set up that works for you, that you can commit to, that is going to be your system. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone knows what their responsibilities are. And that is the way that you can play kind of regardless of opposition. Perhaps, and again, I'm being as positive as possible, but perhaps it was a clever, forward-thinking move from Gareth Southgate to set up in a way against lesser opposition, but get people playing in a system that they are comfortable with, so that when Germany come around, everyone's set in their system. Had we played a really open, expansive game with one defensive midfielder, we would now be having to totally reshift that in order to face the threat offered by Germany. Instead, okay, it's looked fairly uninspiring in certain games. Maybe the Scotland game is the obvious one to pick on. We didn't look up for it. We didn't look open. We didn't seem hungry for goals because we weren't. Because the system was set up for, regardless of opposition, this is how we play. And if it comes good against Germany, then everything that we've seen in the past weeks, 10 days, will be proved to be correct. If it goes wrong against Germany, then I think we can have a pop about these groups. But if it goes right against Germany, then I think the strategy for these groups has been effective and proved correct.